Good morning to you. Welcome to our Sunday series. Short stories are very popular indeed these days. It takes an accomplished author to write a good one, but it may surprise you that there are several short historical stories in the Bible. One of the best is about Esther. It only takes 30 minutes to read it, but it contains everything that you would want: suspense, tension, emotion, humiliation, threats, heroes, and villains. There's the paranoid Xerxes, king of Persia. No one was allowed to approach him without prior arrangement, not even his wife. He was right to be paranoid because in the end he was assassinated by the commander of his security guard. And then there was the villain of the piece, Haman the Agagite. That's a lovely name, isn't it? Haman the Agagite, who was senior advisor to the king and who planned the first final solution, a Holocaust, the destruction of all of the Jews across the entire Persian Empire. Then there was Esther, queen to Xerxes, successor to the independently minded Queen Vashti. Vashti has been described as the first feminist, whilst Esther was the first post-feminist. She was beautiful, intelligent, resourceful, godly. And last of all amongst the cast list is Mordecai, cousin to Esther, and her guardian, because she was an orphan. As the story unfolds, Mordecai hears about the plans for the final solution before they are put into operation. He sends a message to Queen Esther for her to try to use her influence with the king to change government policy on the extermination of the Jews. Haman the Agagite, the villain, had hatched the plan, and Xerxes the king had rather indifferently agreed to it. But if it is to be carried out, then both Queen Esther and Mordecai, her cousin, will be destroyed, along with all of the other Jewish people. Here's Mordecai's message to her. If you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. And who knows but that you have come to royal position for such a time as this. If you remain silent, challenges Mordecai. One of the things that no one likes is a rent-a-mouth, someone who's got an opinion on every subject under the sun and loves to share those opinions with anyone who will listen. These kind of people seem to dominate social media today. It seems to have been made for them. Regrettably, they also seem to dominate the social discourse over and above social media. But mostly, being a rent-a-mouth is not a problem for the average Christian. Rather, our problem is the reverse. When should we speak out? When is it right for us to make a fuss about an issue? When should we make our voice heard? There is a strand of Christian teaching which praises the person who has learned to bring their tongue under control. Solomon in his Proverbs writes, "Even fools are thought wise if they keep silent, and discerning if they hold their tongues." Yes, the talkative person can be a terrible nuisance and distract attention from the real issues, but when should we speak out, if at all, and stop being silent? Well, firstly, we should speak only after we have prayed. One of the fascinating and often repeated facts about the events recorded in the book of Esther is that there is no mention of God anywhere, and yet the story is full of his activity. As soon as Esther receives the message from Mordecai, her cousin, she proclaims a fast. She's not called her people to fast for their physical health. She's not trying to cleanse her body of toxins, but rather they are fasting for their spiritual well-being. Along with fasting is the release of time from the preparation and eating of meals, so that that time can be devoted to praying and seeking the mind of God. In fasting, they're saying to God that they are facing a serious problem which requires his intervention. So hours of the day are now freed up to be given over to prayer. What should we do, they ask. How should we approach this serious problem? What guidance have you got for us? So firstly, we should pray. Secondly, we should speak out on issues where the Lord has already spoken clearly to us in the commands that he's given us to obey. There are some issues in life where the solution is a matter of personal opinion, whilst in other matters we've already been given clear guidance by the Lord, and it's not a matter of finding out what to do, it's more a matter of obedience to a command that we've already been given. We've already been given clear guidance regarding relationships, marriage, sexual behavior, honesty, integrity, justice, and so much more. So we should be speaking out on those issues where we are confident of the mind of God. Thirdly, we should be speaking primarily about the interests of others, although obviously sometimes those issues will affect us as well. Esther and Mordecai were concerned for the survival of the Jewish people, but of course they were Jewish themselves, so it was impossible for them to avoid self-interest in their desire for justice. But Paul advises this when we're raising our voice over matters of concern. He says you should not be looking to your own interests, but to the interests of others. And that should frequently be a guiding principle for us. However, as I was preparing this talk, I had a look at the number of times that Jesus defended himself and spoke up on his own behalf when he was accused of being mistaken in the things that he was saying or in the things that he was doing. We know that it's not a good thing to be defensive all the time. And yet Jesus did challenge incorrect or illogical thinking when he came across it, even when it related to him. And we shouldn't be afraid or embarrassed to do the same. So what about it, Christian friend? What are the issues of today that you're feeling strongly about? How could you raise your voice to contest the direction of travel, or to contribute to the direction of travel of your church, of your community, of your government, of the nation's policies? Who are the people of influence? Who should be contacted? How can you make your voice heard? If you remain silent, challenges Mordecai, you're here, perhaps, he says to Esther, for such a time as this. When Mordecai wrote to Queen Esther, he said to her, "Who knows, but that you have come to royal position for such a time as this." Sometimes we may regret that we're having to live through the times that we're currently facing and wish that we could turn the clock back. Yet who knows, but that we are drawing breath for such a time as this. Our lives are not an accident. Our times are not an accident either. We are people of influence every day in the conversations we have with family and friends and our wider community. We have the opportunity to influence others and to voice the mind and heart of God as it's revealed to us in the Bible. Here is a role we should not avoid. Always the question we ask ourselves is, but what can little old me do? It's when the little old me's start to raise their voice that leaders take some notice, because usually the little old me's are docile and quiet and say nothing. Sometimes they're called the silent majority. If you feel strongly about a matter of principle, and have prayed about your reaction, then perhaps now is the time for a little old me to raise their voice and be heard. Read on in the short historical story of Esther and see what the Lord did for the Jewish people when the queen took the risk to speak out. It has some remarkable and miraculous twists and turns. It's well worth a 30-minute read. God bless you.